Life Audio.
There's a saying that says, if you aren't embarrassed by your first release, you waited too long. That's very, very, very true. Meaning you can't possibly know what you don't know until you try it. Hello and welcome to the Encourager Podcast, where we have encouraging conversations to help you joyfully harmonize your home and work life. I'm your host, Rebecca Scott. I'm a wife, mother, designer, coach, and author. I'm here to help encourage and empower you to confidently make decisions that work for you and your stage of life, whatever that might be. Hello, Encouragers. Today's podcast is brought to you by Just Thrive Probiotics, my go-to supplement to feel even more energized and lighter. I also love the Just Thrive Calm supplement to keep my thoughts from spinning and to keep them more focused and in the moment. If you use the code ENCOURAGER at justthrive.com, you'll get 15% off. On today's episode, we're going to talk about 3 permissions that will, I think, drastically change how you plan for the future. And I've been using these 3 permissions for many years, and you are going to walk away with 3 things, 3 permissions that you can allow yourself within the first 10 minutes that will change how you think about goals, plans, even tasks. Are you ready? When I hear the word permission, it immediately relaxes my shoulders and it allows me to lean in because I'm being given the permission, or the grace, if you will, to pursue and move forward with those guidelines, because that's what they are. They're like, hey, without you having to wonder what it is, here's the permission, here's the guidelines. So in my experience, these 3 permissions make my life so much more enjoyable, and it also makes it more dreamable. So here are the 3 permissions, and then I will break them down. Number 1, do things at 80%. Number 2, don't plan past 3 to 5 years. And number 3, do all things at 1% initially. Okay, so number 1 permission, do things at 80% because it allows you the freedom to not get it perfect. Raise your hand out there if you're like, no, that's not happening. Listen, 80% is still excellent, you guys. You do not need to get it perfect. Now, stay with me. All of you who are perfectionists, stay with me, okay? We don't have to get everything right before we launch it, in quotations, okay? Right before you start it, okay? There's a saying that says, if you aren't embarrassed by your first release, you waited too long. That's very, very, very true. Meaning you can't possibly know what you don't know until you try it. So this allows me to zoom out and say, okay, is this 80% complete? Is this ready as much as I know for right now? And am I allowing 20% for wiggle and for finishing touches after it launches? It also allows me to move up deadlines and projects because I'm 80% there. And then I have time to reevaluate what things aren't going right so I can adjust in real time. That is key. Launch it and adjust in real time, because the chances are you're going to get some feedback immediately that you're like, wait, we can change that right now. And so I just super like this principle. And it removes the perfection element, but reinforces the done element. And sometimes done pays the bills faster than perfection. Amen, right? And also, it lets the dream or the idea or the project live rather than die with the overwhelm of 100%. You're starting to peter out at 80% anyways, right? You're like, oh, geez, are we going to make it? But if you know that 80% is your version of done, and then the 20% you're going to do in live mode, or maybe not at all, you're more likely to do it. Also, I think this can apply to home life. How many more projects or ideas would we implement if we remove the expectation for 100% done? And especially for home life, 80% allows for the 20% to come in after you have lived in it or lived with it. That's a ton of it, is just living with it and then going, we do need to make some changes here, but you wouldn't have known that if you were trying to get everything done at 100%. Now, it doesn't mean the 20% won't eventually get done or ever happen, but it does mean you can finish to that point and then decide what 20% more would mean, or if you need it at all. There's the permission. I love it. Number 1, permission to do things at 80% allows us freedom to not get it perfect. Okay, number 2, permission. Permission to not plan past 3 to 5 years. Okay, this was a huge nugget for me personally because I would read my goals from 1 year, 5 year, and 10 years, knowing full well 10 years from now is a long time out. And I don't even know what that looks like. I was scared or unsure every time of how to project that far because that's a lot can change, including myself and what I'm dreaming about that far out. And it also felt fake to project that far. And I didn't like that feeling. So now I give myself permission to dream about 3 to 5 years out, but only at 80%, right? This allows me to give more details of what the goals are, taking into account data of what I know for now and what I can project for the future. Also, I can do the math for the ages of my kids, marriage, and my businesses fairly quickly, just adding 3 or 5, whichever one I choose, and it just lessens the overwhelm of thinking 10 years out. It also somewhat allowed me to dream bigger, because it wasn't so fluffy, meaning I can think 3 years from now. It's just so much more concrete. I want to be ... I want to do ... I want to see ... In fact, the number 3 in particular allowed me to have the goal and then say, okay, year 1 is this. Year 2 is this. Year 3 is this. So, for example, I want to build a bunkhouse for my family. We want to entertain many families, and we want to entertain our own family, and we want to have loads of memories with friends, families, cousins, and also a ton of fun games. So that being said, year 1 is a savings plan. Year 2 would be building, and year 3 would be streamlining our guest and party schedule. And even just that allowed me to isolate year 1 and give more steps and details to what saving would look like. And then I could give more steps and details to step 2 and to step 3. And that way, when I had an idea for the bunkhouse, I knew what year it belonged in because of this, like just projecting 3 years out. By the way, this dream is going to happen, and now I have officially put legs on it with you guys. So follow up with me. Permission number 3, permission to do all things at 1% initially. You already know I say this all the time. It'll probably be written on my tombstone is that she did everything at 1%. It's actually written on my obituary as well. But I believe doing things at just 1% is little steps to big dreams. That's all it is. And that's all a dream takes. It's all little tiny steps when we all break it down. But when I remind you that all things start at this tiny percentage, you are more likely to try a few things and just watch and experience as things start to add up to a bigger idea. So 1% means 1 call, 1 meeting, 1 Google search, 1 afternoon off to dream about it. Permission right there, 1 afternoon off. 1 Post-it note about it, 1 journal entry about it. And then after I do just that 1%, what is 1% more I could do? This is called compounding. And the results are so fun to watch unfold. I also believe this can be used for both home and work life. For example, any idea I have, I 1% it. I write it down somewhere, whether it's my idea notebook in my purse, whether it's my notes on my phone, or it's a bulletin at church, or maybe it's on my bathroom mirror for my sticky pad that's next to my toothbrush. Yep, permission right there as well. I write it down. That's the first 1% right there. And then after writing it down, I search or I call for more info to gather more data about the initial 1% idea. Then I 1% those efforts, and so on. Let me ask you this. And if you're new to us, I do encourage you to binge listen to all the things that I'm doing. But how else do you think I started all 3 of my brands? I built businesses from scratch with no business degree, just a sewing machine and a microphone. That is 1% in it, baby. And here we are with a load of compound interest. And let me tell you, as I sit in my studio right now, it is beautiful. And every single idea that I have had, or every single dream or initiative started with 1%. And I just kept compounding it and compounding it while raising my kiddos, while trying to be a good wife, while trying to serve God above all else. You guys, I'm living proof it can happen at just the 1%. So in the next 10 minutes after listening to this podcast, I want you to ask yourself, what am I procrastinating on because I can't see the end or all of the details? Then try it at 80%. What can you see? Then I want you to ask yourself, what does 3 years from now look like? Then ask yourself, how can I do this dream or this project or this idea at just 1%? All permissions are super easy to implement, and I believe you will feel more refreshed, productive, and I think you'll be dreaming bigger because of these permissions. One more time, the permissions. Number 1, do things at 80%. Number 2, don't plan past 3 to 5 years. And number 3, do all things at 1% initially. Until next time, encouragers, we got this because he's got us. Thanks so much for tuning in. If the Encourager podcast has helped or encouraged you in any way, please subscribe to the show and leave a 5-star review. And then help us spread the message of encouragement and hope by sharing the podcast with others. Ready to bring more organization and joy into your life? The Encourager Academy helps you harmonize your home and work life through our online course and coaching programs. Our 5-system approach, me, food, family, work, and home, tackles your biggest obstacles, offering lifetime access to video lessons and guided worksheets. Learn at your own pace with practical tools and strategies. Enroll now at encourageracademy.com and use code WeGotThis for $50 off. Are you ready for clarity and purposeful progress without the overwhelm? Join the Clarity Blueprint membership community. Transform your life with like-minded women, taking small, meaningful steps twice a month. Access monthly calls, worksheets, videos, guest speakers, and a supportive community with a very affordable price. Say goodbye to chaos and hello to purposeful progress. Visit theencouragerpodcast.com and join today.
Finding uplifting news in today's headlines is often like searching for a needle in a haystack. At the Story Behind podcast, we believe in the power of finding heartwarming tales and are happy to share empowering stories with you every week. Get inspired by the note a waitress received from a patron dining alone, and even hear about how one VIP passenger made a hardworking pilot get emotional before his flight. To start listening to the Story Behind podcast, visit lifeaudio.com